Sharks are among the ocean's most feared predators, known for their powerful jaws and razor-sharp teeth. With over 400 species, they range from the small, elusive reef sharks to the massive, deadly great white. While most shark encounters are harmless, some turn into life-threatening situations when these apex predators mistake humans for prey. These 6 terrifying encounters will remind you why sharks command such respect and caution in their domain. What happened when the ocean's top predator came too close for comfort? In November 1995, Maria Santos, a 38-year-old woman from Johannesburg, South Africa, was on a much-anticipated vacation along the coast of Gansbaai, a small fishing town known for its stunning beaches and, more ominously, its frequent sightings of great white sharks. Despite being inexperienced in the sport, Maria had always dreamed of surfing, and this trip was her opportunity to finally take on the waves. The cold waters of the Atlantic Ocean were notorious for their unpredictable currents and marine life, but Maria was eager to experience the thrill of the ocean. Gansbaai, often called the Great White Shark Capital of the world, was both a paradise and a danger zone for surfers. The waters were home to a large population of seals, the primary prey of great white sharks. The sharks often hunted in the area, making it a hotspot for shark enthusiasts and a perilous playground for surfers. Signs warning of the dangers were posted along the beach, but Maria, like many others, was determined not to let fear keep her from enjoying her vacation. On the morning of November 15th, Maria joined a group of local surfers who had invited her to experience the waves at a popular surf spot known as Danger Point. The name itself hinted at the risks involved, but Maria, buoyed by the excitement of the day and the encouragement of her new friends, paddled out with them. The sky was overcast and the waves were choppy, but for Maria, it was a perfect day to surf. Maria's enthusiasm was evident as she paddled out into the water, her surfboard bobbing in the swell. The other surfers, more experienced and familiar with the area, kept a close eye on her, offering tips and helping her navigate the waves. Maria was a large woman weighing over 200 pounds, and her size made her a more prominent figure on the water. She knew she was a novice, but she was determined to make the most of her time in the ocean. As the morning wore on, the surfers began to spread out, each seeking their own perfect wave. Maria stayed closer to the group, waiting for her chance to catch a wave that wasn't too intimidating. The water was colder than she had anticipated, but her excitement kept her warm. She paddled out a little further, eager to finally stand up on her board and ride a wave back to shore. But beneath the surface, something else was lurking. Unbeknownst to Maria, a massive great white shark had been cruising the deeper waters off Danger Point. The shark, nearly 18 feet long, was an apex predator, its senses finely tuned to detect the movements of prey. In the cold, murky waters, the shark could detect even the smallest vibrations, and the silhouette of Maria on her surfboard must have appeared like a seal, a perfect target for a hungry predator. Maria was completely unaware of the danger. She was focused on the water ahead, her heart racing as she anticipated her first big wave. The other surfers were a little distance away, giving her space to try and catch a wave on her own. For a moment, everything seemed perfect, a dream finally coming true. Suddenly, without warning, the great white shark made its move. In a flash, the shark surged from the depths, its powerful body slicing through the water with terrifying speed. Before Maria could react, the shark's massive jaws clamped down on her surfboard and her leg in a single, crushing bite. The impact was so violent that Maria was ripped from her board and pulled underwater. Panic set in as Maria struggled to comprehend what was happening. The freezing water rushed over her as the shark thrashed violently, its grip on her leg unyielding. The pain was immediate and excruciating, but her instinct to survive kicked in. She tried to free herself, kicking and flailing, but the shark's power was overwhelming. The other surfers, hearing the commotion, turned to see Maria's surfboard being dragged under, the water around it churning and turning red. Realizing what was happening, they began to paddle frantically towards her, shouting in desperation, but the distance was too great. The great white, sensing its prey's struggle, shook its massive head, trying to tear its victim free. Maria's vision blurred as she was pulled deeper into the ocean. The shark's thrashing made it impossible for her to orient herself. and the cold water sapped her strength. Every instinct in her body told her to fight, but the shark was relentless, its jaws clamped down with crushing force. The world around her became a blur of pain and fear, the water closing in as she was dragged further into the depths. Desperate, Maria reached out with her hands, trying to grab anything that could help her. She felt the smooth surface of her surfboard, now broken and useless as the shark continued its attack. Her mind raced, searching for a way to escape, but the shark's strength was overwhelming. The predator was in control, and Maria's chances of survival were slipping away with every passing second. The other surfers, despite their frantic efforts, were powerless to help. They could only watch in horror as the ocean turned red, the struggle playing out before them like a nightmare. One of the surfers managed to reach the spot where Maria had been, but by then it was too late. All that remained was the broken surfboard, floating in the bloodied water. The great white shark, satisfied with its kill, disappeared into the deep, leaving behind nothing but silence and shock. The surfers, numb with disbelief, began searching the water, hoping against hope to find some sign of Maria. But she was gone, taken by the ocean's top predator in a brutal display of nature's power. The attack sent shockwaves through the surfing community and the town of Gansby. Word spread quickly, and within hours the beach was closed, with authorities issuing warnings about the dangers of shark-infested waters. Maria's death was a tragic reminder of the risks that came with venturing into the ocean, especially in areas known for their shark populations. For those who witnessed the attack, the image of the great white shark's violent strike and the helplessness they felt would haunt them forever. The ocean, so often seen as a place of beauty and adventure, had revealed its darker side, claiming the life of a woman who had simply wanted to experience the thrill of surfing. In the summer of 2001, Tom Lawson, a seasoned fisherman in his mid-40s, set out for a fishing trip in the Gulf of Mexico. He was an experienced angler, known among his friends for his patience and skill. Tom had been fishing the Gulf's waters for years, but this trip was special. He had planned it for months, hoping to reel in something extraordinary. The Gulf of Mexico, with its warm waters and abundant marine life, was the perfect place to find the catch of a lifetime. Tom's destination was a remote spot about 20 miles off the coast of Florida, known among locals as the Deep. This area was famous for its large fish, including the elusive giant grouper. Groupers in the Gulf could grow to enormous sizes, some weighing over 800 pounds. These fish were a challenge to catch, and even more challenging to bring to the surface, but that was exactly what Tom was looking for. On the morning of August 12th, Tom and his close friend Jim boarded their small fishing boat and set out into the Gulf. The air was warm and the sea was calm as they navigated the familiar waters. Both men were in high spirits, sharing stories and laughing as they anticipated the day ahead. The Gulf was beautiful that day, and everything seemed to be in their favor. After a few hours of cruising, they arrived at the Deep. Tom anchored the boat, and the men began preparing their gear. Tom's setup was impressive, a heavy-duty rod and reel designed to handle the immense weight and power of the Gulf's largest fish. He baited his hook with a large chunk of mackerel, hoping it would attract something big. The wait was long, but Tom didn't mind. He had fished these waters many times and knew that patience was the key to success. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the two men relaxed, sipping on cold drinks and talking about everything from fishing tales to family life. The calm rhythm of the ocean and the anticipation of the unknown made the time pass quickly. Suddenly, Tom felt a strong tug on his line. His heart skipped a beat as he gripped the rod and began reeling in. Whatever was on the other end was massive. The line strained under the weight, and Tom's muscles tensed as he fought to keep the rod steady. Jim, noticing the struggle, quickly moved to help, but Tom waved him off. This was his fight, and he wanted to see it through. The battle was intense. The fish on the line was powerful, pulling with such force that Tom had to plant his feet firmly on the deck to avoid being dragged overboard. He could feel every movement of the creature below, each tug and surge sending vibrations up the line and through his body. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he focused all his energy on reeling in the catch. As the minutes passed, Tom began to gain the upper hand. Slowly but surely, he reeled the fish closer to the surface. His excitement grew as he caught glimpses of the enormous shadow moving beneath the water. It was a grouper, a giant, much larger than anything he had ever seen before. The sight of it filled him with both awe and a sense of impending challenge. The fish was nearly at the surface, and Tom knew the hardest part was yet to come. As the giant grouper neared the boat, it suddenly changed its behavior. The fish, realizing it was close to the surface, became agitated. It thrashed violently, sending waves splashing against the side of the boat. Tom tightened his grip on the rod, bracing himself for the struggle to come. The grouper's massive body twisted and turned, its powerful tail churning the water into a frothy mess. Without warning, the grouper made a powerful lunge towards the boat. The sudden movement caught Tom off guard, nearly pulling him off his feet. The fish, driven by a primal instinct to survive, surged toward Tom with terrifying force. The line, now taut as a bowstring, hummed under the strain as the fish closed the distance. The next moment was a blur. The grouper, in a desperate attempt to free itself, slammed into the side of the boat, knocking Tom off balance. He stumbled, his legs giving way as the fish made a final, violent thrust. Tom was yanked forward, and before he could react, he was partially dragged over the side of the boat. His leg dangled in the water, and in an instant, the grouper clamped down with its powerful jaws. Pain shot through Tom's leg as the grouper's teeth sank into his flesh. The shock of the attack left him momentarily paralyzed, his mind racing to comprehend what had just happened. The fish, now more desperate than ever, began to thrash wildly, pulling Tom further over the side. He could feel the immense power of the grouper as it tried to drag him into the water, where it would have the advantage. Tom's survival instincts kicked in. He knew that if he was pulled into the water, his chances of survival would be slim. With his free hand, he reached for the fishing knife strapped to his belt. His fingers fumbled with the handle, slick with sweat and seawater, but he managed to grip it tightly. With a swift motion, he drove the knife into the grouper's side. The fish reacted immediately, releasing Tom's leg as it recoiled in pain. Blood mixed with the seawater, clouding the water around them. But the grouper was not done yet. It thrashed even more violently, sending shockwaves through the water and the boat. Tom could feel the boat rocking beneath him, the force of the fish nearly tipping it over. Jim, who had been watching the ordeal with mounting horror, rushed to help. He grabbed Tom by the arms, pulling him back onto the boat with all his strength. Tom, his leg bleeding profusely, clung to the side of the boat, his heart pounding in his chest. The grouper, wounded but not defeated, made one last attempt to escape. It surged away from the boat, the line snapping under the strain. For a moment there was silence, broken only by the sound of Tom's heavy breathing. The water around the boat was still, the giant grouper gone, leaving behind only a trail of blood and the shattered remnants of the line. Tom lay on the deck, his leg throbbing with pain, but relief washed over him. He had survived the encounter, but just barely. Jim quickly grabbed a first aid kit and began tending to Tom's wounds. The deep gashes in his leg were serious, but they had avoided the worst. Tom winced as Jim cleaned the wounds, the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. The realization of what had just happened began to sink in. The sheer power of the giant grouper, the struggle for survival, and the narrow escape. In the summer of 2003, Kate Thompson, a 25-year-old marine biology student from the United States, was living her dream. She had traveled to the Caribbean, specifically to the beautiful island of St. Lucia, to participate in a research expedition focused on the vibrant coral reefs that surrounded the island. The reefs were a dazzling array of colors and life, teeming with species of fish, corals, and other marine organisms. For Kate, this trip was more than just a research opportunity. It was an adventure, a chance to explore one of the most diverse ecosystems on the planet. On a bright July morning, Kate and her dive partner Laura prepared for a day of diving at a well-known reef called Anse Chastanet. The area was famous for its stunning underwater landscapes and the variety of marine life that could be found there. The waters around St. Lucia were warm and clear, making it a popular destination for divers from all over the world. But with its beauty came risks, as the Caribbean Sea was home to some of the ocean's most formidable predators. Kate and Laura had been diving together for several years, and they trusted each other completely. They had planned this dive carefully, ensuring that all their gear was in top condition. As they boarded the small dive boat that would take them to the reef, the excitement was palpable. The boat ride was short, and soon they were donning their wetsuits and checking their tanks. The dive site was just a short distance from shore, and as the boat anchored, they could see the reef below, its colors shimmering through the crystal-clear water. Kate was the first to enter the water, and the coolness of the ocean was a welcome contrast to the warm Caribbean sun. She adjusted her mask and regulator, then signaled to Laura before descending into the depths. The underwater world opened up before her, a kaleidoscope of movement and color. Schools of fish darted between the corals while sea fans swayed gently with the current. Kate was in her element, her heart filled with a sense of wonder and respect for the life that surrounded her. As they explored the reef, Kate and Laura communicated with hand signals, pointing out interesting species and formations. Kate was particularly interested in the large parrotfish that grazed on the coral, their vibrant colors a stark contrast to the deep blues and greens of the ocean. The dive was going smoothly, and they were collecting valuable data for their research. But as they moved deeper along the reef, Kate noticed something unusual. A sleek silver shape glided through the water a short distance away. It was a barracuda, one of the fastest and most aggressive predators in the Caribbean. Known for their speed and razor-sharp teeth, barracudas are often feared by divers, not only for their predatory nature but also for their unpredictable behavior. Kate had encountered barracudas before, but this one was different. It was much larger and appeared to be watching her intently. The barracuda's presence made Kate uneasy, but she tried to remain calm. She knew that sudden movements could provoke an attack, so she continued to swim slowly, keeping the fish in her peripheral vision. The barracuda, however, seemed to be following her, drawn to the glint of her diving gear in the sunlight. The tension in the water was palpable, and Kate could feel her pulse quicken. She signaled to Laura, who had also noticed the barracuda, and they both began to move toward shallower water. But the barracuda was not going to let them go so easily. As Kate and Laura swam cautiously toward the safety of the shallower reef, the barracuda suddenly accelerated, closing the distance between them in a matter of seconds. Kate barely had time to react before the fish was upon her, its sharp teeth flashing in the sunlight. The attack was swift and brutal. The barracuda struck with terrifying speed, sinking its teeth into Kate's arm with a force that left her stunned. Pain shot through Kate's body as the barracuda's teeth tore into her flesh. The water around her turned red as blood began to cloud the crystal-clear water. The suddenness of the attack left her in shock, her mind racing as she tried to process what had just happened. The barracuda, its primal instincts triggered by the taste of blood, released her arm only to circle back for another attack. Kate knew she had to act quickly. Her training kicked in as she frantically kicked her legs, trying to distance herself from the predator. She signaled desperately to Laura, who was already swimming toward her, her eyes wide with fear. The barracuda, undeterred, circled back and charged again, this time aiming for Kate's leg. Kate managed to twist away just in time, but the fish's teeth grazed her thigh, leaving another painful wound. Despite the searing pain, Kate fought to remain calm. She kicked with all her strength, trying to fend off the relentless predator while signaling for help. Her vision blurred as the blood continued to flow from her wounds, but she knew she had to keep fighting. The barracuda, now frenzied by the scent of blood, made another pass. But this time, Kate used her remaining strength to punch at the fish, her fists connecting with its sleek, muscular body. The barracuda recoiled, momentarily stunned by the unexpected resistance. It hovered in the water, its dark eyes fixed on Kate as it assessed its next move. But before it could strike again, Laura reached Kate's side, grabbing her by the arm and pulling her toward the surface. The two women swam as fast as they could, their movements fueled by adrenaline and fear. The barracuda followed for a few more seconds, but then, as quickly as it had appeared, it turned and disappeared into the blue. Breaking through the surface of the water, Kate gasped for air, her body trembling with pain and shock. Laura, equally shaken, held on to her friend, keeping her afloat as they signaled frantically for the dive boat. The crew, having seen the commotion, sped toward them, their faces etched with concern. Within moments, they were pulled aboard and Kate collapsed on the deck, her arm and leg bleeding profusely. The crew quickly began administering first aid, applying pressure to Kate's wounds to stem the bleeding. Kate lay on the deck, her breathing ragged, as the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. The vibrant, beautiful reef that she had been so eager to explore had turned into a scene of terror. The barracuda's attack had been sudden and savage, a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked beneath the surface of the ocean. In early December 2005, Paul Fisher, a 34-year-old adventure enthusiast from Perth, Australia, set out for a solo kayaking trip along the rugged coastline of Western Australia. Known for its stunning landscapes and diverse marine life, the area around Shark Bay was a favorite spot for thrill-seekers like Paul. The pristine waters were home to dolphins, turtles, and of course the occasional shark. Paul had kayaked these waters many times before, confident in his skills and knowledge of the ocean. But on this day, he would encounter something far more dangerous than he had ever anticipated. The morning began like any other on the western coast, bright and sunny, with a slight breeze ruffling the surface of the water. Paul launched his kayak from a secluded beach, the sand warm under his feet as he pushed off into the gentle waves. He was in high spirits, eager to explore the coastal caves and rocky outcrops that dotted the shoreline. The ocean was calm, and Paul paddled effortlessly, enjoying the solitude and the rhythmic sound of his paddle cutting through the water. As he ventured further from shore, the familiar landscape began to change. The water deepened, taking on a darker hue, and the gentle waves became more unpredictable. But Paul, an experienced kayaker, wasn't concerned. He knew these waters well, or so he thought. The sun climbed higher in the sky as he continued paddling, the coastline now a distant line on the horizon. Paul felt a sense of freedom out here in the open ocean, away from the noise and busyness of everyday life. About an hour into his journey, Paul decided to take a break. He stopped paddling, letting the kayak drift as he took a moment to appreciate the vastness of the ocean. The water around him was eerily still, the only sound the distant cry of a seabird. But as he sat there, something caught his attention, a dark shadow moving beneath the surface of the water. At first, Paul thought it might be a large fish or even a dolphin, but as the shape drew closer, he realized with a jolt of fear that it was something much more dangerous. Bull sharks were notorious in these waters, known for their aggressive nature and tendency to swim in both salt and fresh water. They were one of the few shark species that could thrive in rivers and estuaries, as well as the open ocean, making them particularly dangerous. Paul had heard stories of bull sharks attacking swimmers and surfers, but he had never imagined he would encounter one so far out at sea. The shark began to circle the kayak, its movement slow and deliberate. Paul's heart raced as he watched the massive creature glide through the water, its dorsal fin cutting the surface like a knife. The kayak, which had felt so stable moments ago, now seemed flimsy and vulnerable. Paul knew he had to stay calm, but the sight of the shark was enough to send a chill down his spine. The bull shark circled once more, then twice, before bumping the kayak with a force that nearly knocked Paul off balance. The impact sent a shockwave through the small vessel, and Paul instinctively grabbed the sides, trying to steady himself. The shark bumped the kayak again, this time with more force as if testing its strength. Paul realized with a sinking feeling that the shark was not just curious, it was hungry. Before Paul could react, the bull shark launched a full attack. With a powerful surge, the shark rammed the kayak, flipping it over in one swift motion. Paul was thrown into the water, the cold ocean engulfing him as he struggled to right himself. Panic set in as he realized his worst fear had come true. He was in the water, with an aggressive shark circling nearby. The shark wasted no time. As Paul surfaced, gasping for air, the shark lunged at him, its powerful jaws clamping down on his leg. The pain was immediate and intense, radiating up his leg as the shark's teeth tore into his flesh. Paul screamed in agony, his voice lost in the vastness of the ocean. The shark began to drag him under, its grip unyielding as it pulled him deeper into the water. Desperation and fear fueled Paul's fight for survival. He kicked wildly with his free leg, aiming for the shark's snout, the only vulnerable part of the predator. The shark thrashed in response, its powerful body twisting in the water as it tried to subdue its prey. Paul could feel his strength waning, the cold water sapping his energy as the shark pulled him further down. The surface seemed impossibly far away, and with every passing second his chances of survival grew slimmer. But Paul refused to give up. Summoning the last of his strength, he reached down and jabbed his fingers into the shark's eyes. The shark recoiled in pain, loosening its grip just enough for Paul to break free. Blood clouded the water around him, but he forced himself to swim upward, each stroke a battle against the darkness closing in around him. The need for air drove him forward, and the instinct to survive pushed him beyond his limits. Breaking through the surface, Paul gasped for breath, his lungs burning as he gulped down air. The shark, momentarily disoriented, circled below, but it seemed to lose interest in its injured prey. Paul clung to the overturned kayak, his body trembling from the cold and the shock of the attack. He was bleeding heavily, his leg a searing mass of pain, but he was alive. A boat, drawn by the commotion, sped toward him. The crew, horrified by the sight of the bloodied man clinging to the kayak, quickly pulled him aboard. Paul collapsed on the deck, his body weak and his mind reeling from the ordeal. The boat raced back to shore, but Paul barely registered the journey. His thoughts were consumed by the attack, the sight of the shark, and the realization that he had come within moments of death. The bull shark, one of the ocean's most feared predators, had left Paul with life-threatening injuries and a deep-seated fear of the sea. The ocean, once a place of adventure and freedom, had shown its darker side, and Paul knew he would never view it the same way again. In the scorching summer of 2007, the Evans family decided to spend a relaxing day at a remote river in northern Australia. Known for its wild beauty and diverse wildlife, the area was a favorite retreat for locals. The river, winding through dense bushland, was surrounded by towering eucalyptus trees and thick undergrowth, offering a serene escape from the bustling city life. For Mark and Jane Evans, it was the perfect place to take their children, 15-year-old Jamie and his younger sister Lily, for a day of swimming and picnicking. The day started like any other. The sun was high in the sky, casting a warm glow over the landscape. The river's cool, clear water beckoned, and the family quickly set up their picnic area under the shade of a large tree. Jamie and Lily were eager to jump into the water, and after a quick reminder from their father to stay close to the shore, they waded in. The river was calm, and the children's laughter echoed through the trees as they splashed around near the bank. Mark, a seasoned outdoorsman, kept a watchful eye on his children, especially aware of the potential dangers that lurked in the waters of northern Australia. Saltwater crocodiles, or salties as they were commonly known, were a constant threat in this region. These apex predators were known for their stealth, power, and ability to remain completely still just beneath the water's surface, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Despite their fearsome reputation, many locals believed that with caution, the risks could be managed. As the afternoon wore on, Jamie, always the adventurous one, decided to swim a bit further out from the shore. The water was cool and refreshing, and the sense of freedom he felt was exhilarating. He didn't notice the subtle shift in the river's current or the way the water seemed to ripple ever so slightly behind him. Unbeknownst to Jamie, a large saltwater crocodile had been lurking just beneath the surface, its eyes fixed on the unsuspecting boy. The crocodile, a creature of immense strength and deadly precision, had been lying in wait, perfectly still and nearly invisible in the murky water. It had been watching Jamie's movements, waiting for the right moment to strike. When Jamie swam a little too far from the safety of the shore, the crocodile seized its opportunity. With terrifying speed, the crocodile lunged out of the water, its massive jaws clamping down on Jamie's torso. The force of the attack was so sudden and overwhelming that Jamie didn't even have time to scream. The crocodile's powerful jaws crushed down on his body, pulling him under the water in an instant. The serene river, moments ago a place of laughter and joy, erupted into a scene of chaos and horror. Mark and Jane, who had been chatting near the picnic area, were alerted by the sound of splashing and the sudden absence of their son's laughter. When they turned towards the river, they were met with a sight that would haunt them forever. Jamie was gone, and in his place, the water churned violently, stained with blood. The realization hit them like a freight train. Jamie had been attacked. Without thinking, Mark grabbed the nearest object he could find, a large branch from a nearby tree, and sprinted towards the water. Jane's screams echoed in his ears, but his focus was entirely on saving his son. He waded into the river, the cold water soaking his clothes as he desperately searched for any sign of Jamie. The water was murky, making it difficult to see, but Mark refused to give up. He plunged the branch into the water repeatedly, aiming for the crocodile's head and snout, the only vulnerable parts of the beast. The crocodile, agitated by the sudden attack, thrashed wildly, dragging Jamie deeper into the water. But Mark, fueled by sheer adrenaline and the primal instinct to protect his child, kept fighting. He struck the crocodile again and again, each blow more desperate than the last. Finally, the crocodile, overwhelmed by the relentless assault, loosened its grip just enough for Mark to grab hold of Jamie and pull him free. With a final burst of strength, Mark hauled his son out of the water and onto the riverbank. Jamie was barely conscious, his body limp and his skin cold to the touch. He was bleeding heavily from deep gashes in his torso, but he was alive. Mark and Jane quickly wrapped him in towels, applying pressure to the wounds and trying to keep him awake. They knew they were far from medical help, but they couldn't afford to panic. As they rushed Jamie to the nearest hospital, the reality of what had happened began to sink in. The attack had been swift and brutal, a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked in the wilds of northern Australia. The river, once a place of fun and relaxation, had become a battleground between man and nature. Jamie had come within moments of death, and the experience left the entire family shaken to their core. It was a bright and sunny morning in the summer of 2009. The waves at Waikoloa Beach on the Big Island of Hawaii were perfect. Consistent swells rolling in, crystal clear water glistening under the sun. The beach was a favorite among locals and tourists alike, known for its stunning views and ideal surfing conditions. Among the surfers that day was 26-year-old Jenna Riley, a professional surfer who had spent most of her life chasing waves around the world. Hawaii was one of her favorite spots, a place where the ocean felt like home. Jenna had arrived early that morning, eager to catch the best waves before the beach became crowded. She had a few successful rides, the waves carrying her effortlessly to shore. The rhythm of the ocean, the thrill of the surf. It was all familiar, comforting. After riding a particularly exhilarating wave, Jenna decided to paddle out again, further than she had before, hoping to catch one of the larger sets forming on the horizon. As she paddled, the water around her was calm, almost serene. But beneath the surface, something was lurking. The waters of Hawaii, while beautiful, were also home to some of the ocean's most formidable predators. Among them, the tiger shark was one of the most feared. These sharks, known for their size and aggression, were not uncommon in Hawaiian waters, but attacks were rare enough that most surfers didn't think twice about them. Jenna, lost in her thoughts and the anticipation of the next wave, didn't notice the dark shape moving swiftly beneath her. The tiger shark, a massive creature with a reputation for unpredictable behavior, had spotted Jenna's silhouette from below. To the shark, her movement on the surfboard resembled that of a wounded seal, a common prey. Without warning, the shark made its move. Before Jenna could react, the shark surged upward, breaking the surface with terrifying force. Its powerful jaws clamped down on her leg, the impact so intense that it nearly knocked her off her board. Pain shot through her body as the shark's teeth sliced through flesh and muscle, the water around her instantly turning red. Jenna screamed in agony, the sound lost in the vastness of the ocean, her mind struggling to process the sudden brutal attack. The tiger shark, driven by instinct, began to thrash, trying to drag Jenna off the board and into deeper water. The sheer power of the animal was overwhelming, and for a moment, it seemed like the ocean itself was trying to pull her under. But Jenna's survival instincts kicked in. Despite the excruciating pain, she clung to her surfboard, using it as a shield to keep the shark at bay. Every movement was a fight for survival, every second a battle against the predator that had turned her day of surfing into a nightmare. Jenna's efforts to fend off the shark were frantic but determined. She kicked at the shark's snout with her free leg, desperately trying to keep it from getting a stronger grip. The water churned violently as the shark continued its assault, but Jenna refused to give up. She knew that if she let go, if she allowed herself to be pulled under, it would all be over. Nearby, other surfers had seen the commotion. Realizing the danger, they paddled towards Jenna as quickly as they could, fear gripping their hearts. They knew time was of the essence. The shark was relentless, but so was Jenna. With every ounce of strength she had left, she continued to fight, even as her leg throbbed with pain and her vision blurred from the blood loss. Finally, just as Jenna felt her strength waning, help arrived. 2 surfers reached her side, one of them striking the shark with his surfboard, causing it to release its grip momentarily. The others pulled Jenna onto their boards, the water still swirling with blood. They paddled furiously towards the shore, the adrenaline driving them forward, even as the shark circled one last time before disappearing into the depths. By the time they reached the beach, Jenna was barely conscious, her leg a mangled mess of torn flesh and bone. But she was alive. The attack had been brutal, a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked beneath the waves, even in a place as seemingly idyllic as Hawaii. As Jenna was airlifted to the hospital, the reality of what had happened began to sink in. She had come face to face with one of the ocean's deadliest predators and had lived to tell the tale.